Alrighty, well, we're already dealing with technical difficulties. Give me just a second, folks. We're live. We got Bubba waiting. Gonna play the intro in a second. I just gotta reopen my software and hope it doesn't. There. The hour. It is the hour of the time. Lights out for the curfew of the body, soul, and mind. This is Richard Greaser, and you're listening to the PAZNIA Radio Network.
Big city lights are shining down on me, different ones than yesterday. And although they don't spell my name, I know that they will someday. Drinking all the backstage beer, trying to drown out your tears. Man, it's been a long time since I've been home. God, it feels like years. Forgive me for my confusion. I got sold a rock and roll delusion. Now it's taking its toll, it's catching up with me. Got my foot to the floor, going nowhere fast. Don't see how I can make this last. Was convinced that my life would be complete beside an empty passenger seat. Beside an empty passenger seat. Another service stop, oh, another train to hop. Another corner street busker singing in the rain. Stringing my J45, stateside nerds make me feel alive. But I think of you to try and keep me safe. Oh, forgive me for my confusion. I got sold a rock and roll delusion. Now it's taking its toll, it's catching up with me. Got my foot to the floor, going nowhere fast. I don't see how I can make this last. Was convinced that my life would be complete beside an empty passenger seat. Beside an empty passenger seat. My confusion, I got sold a rock and roll delusion. Now it's taking its toll, and it's catching up with me. Got my foot to the floor, nowhere fast. Don't see what can make this last. Now I know that my life won't be complete beside an empty passenger seat. Beside an empty passenger seat. Beside an empty passenger seat. Beside an empty passenger seat.
Alrighty, folks. This is Richard Greaser. It is Music Mondays. Today I've got joining me Baba, co-host of the Two Angry Cunts podcast, Bitcoin podcaster. Dealing with technical difficulties. It's always, this stuff's hard. It's hard to be a Bitcoin podcaster. It's hard to run live streams. It's hard to do it on typewriters. It's just It's hard work, so bear with us. It's the first time I'm having a guest dealing with all the audio routing and playing music and all this stuff. But the show must go on. We're here. Bubba, you there? I don't know if Bubba's there or not. Well, Bubba, interject if you're there.
Yeah, I'm there.
All
I'm
right.
there. Fucking technology. Am I breaking your cherry on the guest thing?
What do you mean?
Your virginity on the live stream guest thing you were saying.
Doing it this way, yeah. I guess you're breaking my virginity.
Back in the day, we used to call that breaking her cherry, popping her cherry.
Yeah, you're popping my
thing.
cherry. How's that feel? How's that
there
feel?
You go. Oh, it makes me feel so masculine.
Great. Men need that. Men need to feel masculine. Whatever it takes. As long as it's not hurting anybody. Yeah. You're not hurting me. I'm enjoying you popping my cherry. It's been a long time coming. So yeah, we've been chatting about music a lot since Lake Satoshi when I met you for the first time. I heard a lot about you on the Ungovernable Mistress podcast. You're close with those guys. You developed the entire track list tonight, so I'm excited to get into it. That first song was "Empty Passenger Seat" by Joe Martin. So tell me about Joe. Why'd you choose that song?
Well, he's a real songwriter. Let's put it that way. He gets there with his acoustic guitar and writes these songs. But it's kind of weird because I long time I've liked him now, and he's English. He's from the UK, but his style is very Americana.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a lot of Americana music in him, man. When I talk to him, and he's got the story, if you ever have him on, because he'll be in Nashville in a little while. He's gonna record the next album there. But when he was over here, and he took a drive down to Muscle Shoals, Alabama, to go to the Muscle Shoals studio, and that's steeped in history and American music. Those guys, and I don't know. I like him because it's the form and the structure and all that. It's just what I call, he does the yeoman's work. He sits down, whether an idea comes to him, and he writes the lyrics and the music and the melodies and all that, all on mainly guitar. I don't know if he plays with a little piano or not, but I know it's mainly on guitar, and that's my forte. And I like storytellers, and he's a storyteller, so I like that. It's kind of a lost art these days, being that I'm the old fuck that I am.
The storytelling's a lost art, you said.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you just don't see it much anymore unless you really start diving deep into shit, and then you'll find some people. But that was up until the 2000s or so. That was the main thing. You had your storyteller songwriters. You had all the genres of music, but you had the storytellers, and they've kind of, a lot of the old ones have died off. Bob Dylan, about the only one that's still alive. But of the guys that can weave a tale, spin a yarn, as they say. I just like storytellers. Like listening to cowboys do their storytelling thing. They do some of the stuff you find out there, but they'll do it up in Montana and stuff like that, where you just have these cowboy poets, storytellers, and this is the way they can weave a story out of it. It's entertaining to me.
I like it too. Some of my favorite I love Bob Dylan. I love Johnny Cash. I love Townes Van Zandt.
There you go.
Townes is great.
Yep.
I was listening to Waiting Around to Die. I was watching a TV show, and they were playing the Waiting Around to Die. That's one of my favorite songs of all time. And I felt inspired and started writing. That's where my most recent song came from, was inspired by that. But I love
that one
Yeah, the Cursed with Sight.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Well, why do you think that is? Why do you think the music industry has gotten away from storytelling, whereas that used to be what people loved?
Development time, I guess. Now it's the industry itself. You got to, if you get a deal or anything like that, you get management that wants to push you. They'll only, it's like you've got to hit it. You got to have a hit right out of the box. You got to hit it. You got to get the audience immediately. Where back in the day, they give a songwriter, a 7-album deal, and they give him 3 or 4 albums to gain an audience. That's talking 3 or 4 years. And now, because I think it's a combination of the social media, it's like bands. It's kind of like the band culture is kind of gone away in a lot of areas of the country. Not like Texas, you got bands everywhere, and they go out and they develop themselves for 2 or 3 years in the bars before anything ever comes out. That's how you would gain an audience, but also that's how you gain proficiency and you learn your craft, because songwriting's a craft. It just is. It's a craft, and it's one of the hardest, easiest things to do. Because everybody can come up with words, but it's hard to come up with words, get to your point, and make a rhyme and tap a vein in people. It's not easy. Which is I have a theory that most of that, because most of the people that when they're popular, they're under the age of 30. Because I believe what happens somewhere once you pass 30, life starts coming in. You maybe fall in love, get married, and get kids and stuff. But your creativity, it's like the Rolling Stones. I've joked about it. They haven't had a good song in fucking 30, 40 years. They put out records, but they haven't had anything really good. Their creative span was there in that late 60s and early 70s, man. They were kicking on all cylinders, and that's when you're in that age group. And I think it's because your mind, when you're that age and you don't have as much responsibility, things can't come into your mind and block thoughts. And you're also of the ilk of, well, let's try it and see what the hell happens. Where I think that's kind of gone away, the whole try it and let's see what happens, because the biz don't allow it anymore. And I don't know if that's because the biz thinks that's what the people want, because I think, later on when you play Jesse, there's a storyteller and he's blown up, so the business, but he's not in the business. He's all he's got is a manager, but he's not at a record deal and nothing like that, because he doesn't really want it. He went through that in his 20s, in his early 20s. And now he's 33 or something like that. He said on Rogan, but they think the audience doesn't have the attention span for it, which is total bullshit. Because everybody likes a story. That's why people watch movies, read books, and stuff like that. It's a story, and people are always going to love stories. You grow up getting told bedtime stories by your parents, stuff like that. I think everybody enjoys the story, but the business doesn't think they do. They don't think they have the attention span, so they put out the stuff that they think, that's what the people want to hear. And I don't know if the success of people these days in music, I don't know if it's so much that the people just glommed onto it, because I think a lot of stuff, it's like, think of the biggest person in the world right now is Taylor Swift, right? Can you name 5 song titles?
I should be able to. There's 22. I could probably sing 5 of them. It's been a long time. It's been a long time since I've listened to Taylor Swift. I liked Taylor Swift when I was younger. Back
but
before.
That's what I mean. That's what I'm talking about, though. The shared experience. If there was a band, like back in the day when everyone called it 80s, 90s, whatever, that was that fucking big. Let's just say Guns N' Roses. They were fucking huge. Everybody knows Sweet Child of Fucking Mine. They just fucking know it. Even if they're younger and they weren't even born, they've seen it on YouTube now, right? But it was like a shared experience that was happening in the world with music because, what now is dead basically is radio, and radio would grab a song and they'd be playing it all, like just say in America, all around the country, right? And it became a shared experience. And people would wait to go get they'd wait in line overnight to get the tickets. They'd wait in line for when a new album was coming out. They'd wait outside the record stores, lines to buy the new record. And, now that we don't buy records, nobody has to wait in line for nothing. You don't have to go wait in line to buy a ticket. You buy everything online. And it's just kind of taking that whole shared experience away, I think. And that kind of keeps coming back to the songwriter thing. That's just how I say it. Like, can you imagine? You say like Townes Van Zandt. If Townes Van Zandt was to come out today, would anybody ever find him? It's hard to say, but
He would need
odds-on favorite.
He would need some broccoli haircuts, doing TikTok videos.
Yeah, they need the broccoli haircut. And I don't think Townes would wear the broccoli haircut much.
No, he's too cool for that.
But like that, all those guys, especially all those old Texas songwriters like Guy Clark, Townes Van Zandt and stuff. If they were to come out in this day and age, I don't know. Would Bob Dylan, if he came out today with what he did back then, would it catch? Maybe. But would it be a worldwide phenomenon? I don't know. Because it's hard to, that's what kills me. The people in the business that run the business, they act like they know what people want and shit. And they never know. They just don't really know. Because there's all the stories of all the bands, where they got done with the album, they took the record company was like, this sucks. We don't hear a hit and blah, 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 and all this shit. And then it would become an unbelievably huge album. Because basically the people running the record business, they're basically used car salesmen. That's really what they are. They don't really know music. They're not into music. It's not their thing. Where, it's like anything else. If the music business had people that were really music, just aficionado diehards, it might be better. I don't know. But that's the thing is you got to realize that what you think you may not know shit. That's, basically it.
Yeah, I've been studying the music industry a lot. I've been talking to a lot of musicians. I've been talking to a lot of different individuals that work in the music industry, various ways, bookers, managers, people that have retired from music like you have, well, sort of, but like from the performance side of things. And there's a lot of frustration. I think there's a lot of general frustration across the board. What's interesting is it seems like the only way for songwriters to make money is if they write a radio hit. And so this past week I heard this hilarious term, which I think is really funny. It's called radio metal. And
what the fuck? Radio metal? Was that like Poison and shit back in the day?
Well, it's more like a modern term. So I mean, you've heard I mean, do you ever listen to the radio, listen to metal music on the radio?
I haven't listened to the radio in probably, I don't know, over 5 years. I haven't turned it on, because once, things like Sirius Satellite came out and now everybody's streaming, it's like, well, because one thing, when you listen to radio, you got to sift through all the commercials,
Yep.
And that's annoying as fuck. So it's kind of like, why listen to the radio? If I knew a radio station was out there that was really diving into finding new artists and shit like that, I'd listen. But there again, it's the bottom line. It's the business. Basically, there's two companies that own almost every radio station in America, and they'll just have a programmer. Hell, half of them don't have real DJs. They just have a programmer, and the programmer says these are songs to play, and they're basically streaming their radio station. There's no humans doing the picking. Like, there's all kinds of stories. Like, here's one: Rod Stewart's song "Maggie May." You know that song, right? Wake up, Maggie. I think I got something to say to you.
Mm.
Huge Rod Stewart song. That was the B-side. That was not the single. But in Cleveland, Ohio, a DJ flipped the record and went, huh? He started playing like crazy. And then it's just started catching on around the country. And what the record company picked as a single, it's a good song, but it's not what Maggie May became, And that was because there was a human in that DJ. And most DJs back in the day, they were the music aficionados. They loved it, And when they'd find B-sides, everyone, and that's not the only time that's happened, but they would find the B-side, the non-single side of the record, and go, wait, this is better. Listen to this. And then we'd catch on. And those days again are done, because even if a DJ is at a radio station, he's being told exactly what he has to play or she has to play. They don't really get to pick music anymore unless they're somebody special, but it just doesn't happen that much.
Well, this term radio metal, it describes, because there's a lot of bands that'll have their specific sound, and then they'll create something that sounds like everything else. Like they just kind of devolve into slop, and it changes. So like the band Disturbed, for example, they've had all these hits that people like, and then they come out with this song. I would classify. I like to call band, like I like the band Disturbed, but I would classify them as douche metal. Like the people that typically listen to a lot of Disturbed are, you just look at them and they look like a douche. Like they might be a great person, but they look like a douche. But they come out with this song, this cover of The Sound of Silence.
Yeah, that was years ago. Yeah,
or Fall Out Boy.
Yeah.
Like what the hell is going from Thanks for the Memories to Light 'Em Up? My songs know what you did in the dark. Like it sounds like everything else, and I guess I didn't prepare enough to give a bunch of examples, but
that's all right. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, essentially what these guys are doing is they're devolving into slop to try and get on the radio, because that's the only way so the radio's dead, but it's the only way that songwriters can make money, because they don't make any money off the streams.
Nope, they're making no money off the stream. See, back in the day, again, when we sold albums, that's how the songwriter, we were publishing royalties. That's the money.
Yeah.
You needed to write that song. And the songwriters, there were bands that they didn't really have songwriters. A lot of bands did throughout the 60s and 70s. They just wrote their own shit. But there were the go-to songwriters that they would call. And then they would just get publishing rights. But when an album, you got a certain percentage of it, and an album sold 4 or 5 million copies or more, you got a check in the mail. A friend of mine had a song on the Mellencamp album, the album back in the day, which was the early 80s. And it was a song called Play Guitar. Great song, funny shit. And he was a hairdresser in Bloomington who actually played guitar and stuff. But he co-wrote, John, he wrote the fucking song. John put a whine in. And so John took some publishing rights and stuff. But I remember that after, about a year after the album had been out, it sold, 3-4 million copies. Dan got mailbox money, and the first check was $100,000. And then next quarter, he got one for $50,000. And, then it went down as the sales went away. But that's how songwriters used to make the money, especially in Nashville. That was the bread and butter. But now the way Nashville does it, it's like you got 7 co-writers on a fucking song, and you're trying to split the publishing rights. It's like there's not money. There's not money in it. The bands that are making money is on tour. That's how they make it. Merch and tour. That's how they make their money. But songwriting money is, what they used. It's just not there no more because, like you said, on streams, nobody's making for that money.
Yeah, and there's other things like there's like Patreon. There's that's probably one of the primary ways that people make money is services like Patreon. So they're essentially engaging in some sort of value for value economy. Like I think it's important for people to know if you go to a concert, buy the band's merch, especially if it's a smaller concert. But yeah, I mean it's big tours. But anyways, the value for value economy, I think is really interesting. I want to talk about that. Joe Martin is really a pioneer in this regard as a musician. And so I've got a ton of respect for him. Before we ramble on too long, I do want to get through this, the set list.
Yeah, play another.
So the next song, Crocodile Tears by Joe Martin, followed up by a song I'm really excited about that you sent me, Bubba. It really hit me when I was listening to it. It's The Great Caucasian God by Jesse Wells. I love that song.
There you go.
But yeah. Do me a favor, mute, and
will do.
All right.
I don't need too much in a woman, just someone who cares to love me like they should do. Oh, I need her in my arms instead of find myself alone. And lately I've been talking to her answer phone. On her high maintenance keeps her wearing me down, and her lies about who she's seeing around this town causes me to wonder why I ain't already said goodbye. I keep falling for those crocodile tears she cries. Well, sometimes I think I got a bit crazy for putting up with the she does daily. Or she'll lecture me on how to live my life, then stab me with that marble of high ground knife to watch me bleed with a hypocritical smile. On her high maintenance keeps her wearing me down, and her lies about who she's seeing around this town causes me to wonder why I ain't already said goodbye. Keep falling for those crocodile tears she cries. Let me tell you something, baby. I ain't standing for the way you treated me lately. Oh, her eyes are staring into someone else's now, and she tries to deny it when I ask her. Oh, I don't know how I haven't seen the light, and already said goodbye. Keep falling for those crocodile tears she cries, and keep falling for those crocodile tears she cries. justice is the sword. He was a melting off the faces of the damned. You have heard of Noah's flood, that tale will pale against the blood, pouring out and boiling in uranium sands. Don't you know atomic power is just God's celestial shower? There are those that he has chosen and those that he has not. There are many who will die in the Lord's plan by and by, but it won't be you or I, thanks to the great Caucasian God. And I said, Lord, be down near me, but at everything that's strange to me, everything that's queer. I said, Lord, don't be far. I am in need of a friend indeed, the great Caucasian God. Does not the Lord abide in Texas, down in Waco, and the rest of every Israel that hubris ever claimed? Does not the Lord abide in prisons full of men with holy visions? Don't the Lord abide in every tent and cave? Does not the Lord abide in bunkers and rifles without number, every ruby ridge and Rittenhouse and home? Does not the Lord abide in fear, in tactical gear? Don't the Lord abide in every hell-bent soul? And I said, Lord, please down near me, blot out everything that's strange to me, everything that's queer. I said, Lord, don't be far. I am in need of a friend indeed, the great Caucasian God. I'd like to take a moment to talk with y'all about death. There's a lot of folks that fear death coming quick and swift in the night, stealing away from them the toil of their hands and the fruits of their labor. But I say unto you today, there ain't a crueler trick that death has ever played on a man than to fool a man into thinking, though he was very much dead on the inside, he was in fact alive on the outside. There is a foolish generation squandered all their fathers gave them. They are running out of time left to enjoy. They would kill and eat their own if the TV told them so. So they're keen to watch the world burn just to make more. And they say, Lord, be thou near me, blot out everything that's strange to me, everything that's queer. They say, Lord, don't be far, but they are in need of a friend indeed, the great Caucasian God. I am in need of a friend indeed, the great Caucasian God.
Yes, sir.
I really like that song a lot.
Yep. He's that guy. That guy is. He's steeped in that thing, that songwriting thing. But he's got, just in the last year, I couldn't tell you how many. At least, it seems like he puts out a new song like every other fucking day. He just what he does. He's like Woody Guthrie in that sense. He's just singing the news, and the feelings going around with it. But he's really just, he's stellar is what he is. And he's, like I said, he's blown up. He's getting ready to play his second Farm Aid coming up here. Dave Matthews brought him on the first one. And Dave Matthews introduced him on stage and said, "This is the best songwriter I've ever heard."
How'd you find him?
Well, back in the day when I was in the truck, I would peruse, YouTube while I was driving, not trying to look at the phone, and it came up. He came on after some that it just played through, and there's one of those goddamn Google commercials, and then that voice and that guitar, because he does mostly, he sets his iPhone up in a spot in the woods and plays. So what you're hearing of him is so authentic and organic because it's just the phone and it's him with his guitar and singing. But I heard this guitar and then I heard his voice and then the words. It was, I think I put the song on there and on the list, Cancer, and it just made me fucking laugh out loud. And I'm a huge fan of old songwriter John Prine back in the day, and he would mix in humor in his social commentary, and from that it just snowballed. And anybody I've sent it to, everybody goes, "What the fuck?" They like the guy, and that's how I found it. And I've just been I guess a champion of him because he just doesn't let me down. He consistently fucking writes these songs. You can look at one after the show. It's the list, and it's a play on the Epstein list and shit. And it's funny as hell.
I think it's really, I'm constantly searching for things that just really make me feel something. Because I think that's something that I get frustrated with a lot of music, like the radio metal phenomenon I was talking about. I like music that makes me feel something. And I think the storytelling is a huge part of that. And the part that really hit me in that song was talking about the generation eating their young. Because I feel like when I heard that, I was like, holy shit, that's so real. I've never heard any other musician talk about that. It just hit me like I ran into a brick wall. Because like a lot of times I'll be listening to this music and I'll be doing something else and I'll just have to stop and just be consumed by it. And I'm constantly looking for that. So but I really think it's a responsibility for people. Like if you're dissatisfied with the music industry, if you're dissatisfied with the Bitcoin podcast ecosystem, if you're dissatisfied with what's happening in our culture, to really strive to find people doing good stuff. Yeah. Because the problem isn't that there's nothing good out there. The problem is the discoverability.
Finding it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Because if anything, the reason I found him was because on YouTube, I listen to a bunch of old Townsend, that Guy Clark, stuff like that. I'm not listening to other shit. And so, how the algos work, and it fed me Jesse. And I'm so happy that it did. But like you said, if you got to strive to go find it, it's the same thing that back in the day. Back in the day when you were listening to the radio, if you didn't like the song, change the fucking channel. You'll find one you like, But now, there's a lot of, you said something there that I was listening to somebody, I think it was Rick Beato the other day. And the guy he was talking to basically said, he goes, some of the problem is because we used to, back in the day, we would listen to music because it was hard-earned dollars we had to spend to go get the album and but we would listen to it. We would sit down in our rooms with the record player and listen to it. And now music is kind of like, it's just in the background. Like you were saying, you're doing other stuff. It's in the background. It's not what you're really doing. But, now with all the distractions, people don't seem to have the time. And they want to get enthralled and go online and bitch about something instead of, because music, it's always been said that music will soothe the savage beast. So if you get angry, put on some music that makes you not angry, and you'll get past whatever it is. But the songwriter thing, like you said, the words, it's kind of like some of the saddest songs you've ever heard make you happy. It's weird, isn't it?
It's cathartic. It's cathartic is what it is.
Yeah. And I think that's just part of the way the world has changed because of all the shit that's fed into us on a minute by minute basis. People don't, they don't, a lot of people don't take the time. It's like I joke, one of the biggest things in America was always the front porch of a house, right? And at night, people come home, and then they'd sit down on the front porch and drink beer, smoke cigarettes, say hi to their neighbors or whatever. They just sat there and enjoyed the quiet or whatever. And it's kind of like, why do we even well, we don't. You see that in a lot of new housing additions. The front porch is just the entryway. They might have a deck on the back, but they're not dealing with their neighbors or anything. So you don't, everybody talks about the community. There is no real community anymore. And, there's not, online, there's no such thing as a community because so many people in the community, you've never met them. You don't know what they look like. You don't know what they sound like and shit like that. It's not like, it was. And that sounds like the old man going, in my time, blah, blah, blah. But it truly is. It's a phenomena of, since the internet took big hold, and now everybody's got high speed and la da da da. They just, they don't, like nobody. It's like your local news program. Does anybody turn off the TV and watch local news? No. And the local news barely does local news anymore because they can't sell it. They have to do the national shit. And it's like that with all facets of life. It used to be a big deal. A new movie was coming about. People would go to the theater. And now, not so much. Because, you can just wait a few months and it'll be streaming. You don't got to pay the $30 to go, shit like that. So I think it's a product of the times.
I think there's negative consequences of what you're describing, and I think there's definitely we're seeing a desire for a shift. I think people are longing for connection. They're longing to be able to smoke cigarettes with each other, have a good time. There's something special about hanging out. Like I really had a good time hanging out with you, smoking cigarettes at Lake Satoshi. That
I did too because you had them. I ran out.
Well, all the podcasters that were there, they've been talking about it for weeks and weeks because it was really experience to get together with people. Like people are craving this. People are craving it, and this is something I think musicians have going for them is performing. Like there's always going to be a demand to sit across from somebody that's really talented and listen to them in person and to see them perform. I've been trying to do that a lot more. I used to do it a lot. I got away from it, but as I've gotten into, because I think music's really important culturally. Like the reason why I've been so hyper focused on music is we've been a part of this Bitcoin ecosystem for a while. I think it's really important. I think Bitcoin's important, and culturally it's been really lacking. I don't think Lil Bubble is an effective storyteller, just like playing sailor clips to EDM music. Like
yeah. You hit it on the head. I mean, part of it is my big joke is in the Bitcoin community, air quotes. I always joke going, man, they've got some shitty musical taste, but that's just me being the old man again. But I don't think you're absolutely right. We used to, you'll get a kick out of this. My theory is music died the minute they banned smoking in bars. Because all us smokers, well, fuck it, I'm not going. And when they stopped selling records, the ticket prices for a concert, even just to get into a bar, escalated. Nuts. Because the band was no longer making money with the album, so they got to make it on the tour. And I see some of these ticket prices. Even just a band that's like a mid-level band, and they're going to play in some bar or a small theater. And it's when They're barely known. They may have one or two songs that people know, and it's $100 to get the fuck in. It's like, give me a fucking break, you know? It's just that everything's getting priced out, you know? Because when a band goes out now, they have to have the light show, costs money. They have to have this, costs money. They have to do everything that makes it look like a video on YouTube, and it costs money. And, you know, because I don't think a lot of people are not, they're not engaged by just, okay, I'm going to go see this band. There's 4 or 5 guys standing on stage, maybe a girl singing or whatever, and they're going to rock my socks off. They're not remotely entertained by that. They need the visual shit. You know, somebody's got to fly through the air on cables. What? You know, I don't know, but I think you're right. I know you're right on music is culturally a fucking stick pin right in the map. It centers people. It doesn't matter if it's jazz, country, rock, whatever. People of that like that, they'll all go, and then it's kind of like what a church is. You get a little congregation going on, right? And sometimes it is, you know, a religious experience seeing a band. I know the first time I saw AC/DC live back in fucking 1980. Holy shit! Well, no, it was 79 because it was before Bon died. And I saw Bon Scott, and then I saw him again with Brian Johnson, which I thought, how do you replace Bon Scott? They did it. But it was literally a loud ass religious experience because it was like simplicity in your gut. And it was just, that's what it felt like to see it live. You know?
Absolutely.
I think that's sadly going on. It's kind of like I was saying, movies. You know, there were movies that would like get you, you know, but now every movie's CGI and shit. There's hardly any dialogue unless it's an old Quentin Tarantino movie. There's no stories in the movies anymore. And on streaming platforms, you're watching these fucking 10 episode series, and it could have been a great 1.5 hour movie, but they wanted a series. So the same story they could have told in an hour and a half that would have made it exciting and good is stretched out over 10 fucking episodes. You're like, I'm fucking bored, you know?
I think there's still good stuff out there. I'm finding it.
Oh, it's out there, yeah.
I think it's not all hopeless. I think that's really one of the things.
No, the shift, you're right. I feel the shift actually happen, and it makes me happy as shit that people are wanting to have real, what I call real again. They want real again. They want some sweaty shit in front of them. You know, sweat and dirt. You know, they want it. I feel it too. I'm like you. Yeah, and it makes me hopeful.
I think what's happened is, you know, a lot of people that have been involved in these industries have gotten a little bit greedy, and they tried to play it safe, and they tried to, you know, turn things into a formula. And I think when something's really good, it's not because they followed a formula. It's because they created, you know,
they created it.
Yeah, they created it. Like it has meaning and purpose behind it. It reflects the experiences that they have, and those experiences are relatable to the people consuming it. And like the greatest stories ever told are stories that people can relate to. There's a big reason why.
Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, let's take a break. Go back to the music. We got Cancer and Gilgamesh by Jesse Wells, and then we'll pick up this conversation. It's not
We're
hopeless.
Gonna pick the population up, man. We're gonna pick it up.
Yeah, we're gonna pick it up. We're gonna get people amped. I'm amped. I'm glad you're here with me tonight, Bubba. Cancer by Jesse Wells.
Cancer's getting meaner, and it ain't never been fun. It's supposed to get you when you're old, and now it gets you when you're young. Cancer's always been depressing. It ain't ever been pleasant. It don't care if you're royal, don't care if you're a peasant. Although what causes it? Everything you ate, the sleep you didn't get, job in the air and the water in your bed, the sun and red meat, all the fishes in the sea. They're all a bunch of can't take a risk, cancer-causing carcinogenic SOBs. It's like them apocalyptic folks off the newer Mad Max. On Santa Claus delivered all the cancer in your ass, but it's from the purple ketchup, the BPA's and microplastics. Just hope it don't go mistastic. It's meaner than the meanest of the rumors. It's your own personalized pan Pizza Hut homegrown little tune. Alright. It'll make an atheist plead with God, a hardcore bumper sticker Christian give up. Mon Santa Claus is a checking his list, and the cancer don't give a fuck. Cancer of the head, shoulders, knees, and toes. I wish I had the patent on the cancer screening. I'd be printing cancer dough. Cancer is as lucrative a business as a war. So if you ain't expecting peace, then why expect a cure? I told Gilgamesh goodbye and rode off on the great deluge on my raft of Timu plastic with my harpoon and my pagan friend. I rode the surgeon to America on my earth betrayal boat. Some say the folks that are dead are gonna rise again. They'll be lucky if they float. I'd rather be that son of darkness than to know and pretend I don't. And the mob boss with his golden chain was talking down at the docks, saying, you will know that I'm the Lord when all my working stops. Everything will be replaced, everything that can. It's how it is and always been. Down here in the plight of man, saying, so long, it's been good to know ya. So long, it's been good to know ya. You be good, I'll be good. Maybe we'll get it when we're older. I feel older. Tell me, where are you going? Nowhere. Tell me, where will you run? I'm going where the folks are kind and there's good sunshine and the air's alright, even if I gotta make it all up in my mind. The horde of weeping crocodiles scrolled upon their deck as the pageant of the reptiles plumbed new unfathomed depths, and they wondered how they'd navigate the pit their slaves had dug. I saw Atlas teaching Peter and his pals all how to shrug. Some say the dead will rise again, maybe they will, it's just a vote. I'd rather be that son of darkness than know and pretend I don't. Saying, so long, it's been good to know ya. So long, it's been good to know ya. You be good, I'll be good. Maybe we'll get it when we're older. I feel older. So long, it's been good to know ya.
so long. It's been good to know you. You'll be good, I'll be good. Maybe it won't throw us over.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. That was for, I put that on the list because that's my Sylvie, my co-host on Two Angry Cunts. That's her favorite Jesse song, or one of the favorites. She's got a million of them just like me, but that's one of her favorites. So I put that on there. It's a great song. You know, there again, you hear the lyrics that you're like, holy shit.
So yeah, tell me about Sylvie. Tell me about the Two Angry Cunts podcast. What's going on there?
Well, it basically every week when I was still driving, I'd give her a phone call and we would just start talking. So it was just a conversation. Sometimes voices get raised, sometimes they don't. But I met at the Cattleman's, the one that in Luling, Texas, at Cole's place, the Cattleman's Feast. I met her in person there. But we had been talking a little bit on the phone before we got there, and just sometimes when you meet people, you're like, oh, I've got a kindred spirit right here, and that's what it was. And then we were just friends, and so we just talk about whatever, anything that we want to fucking talk about. It's like sometimes it does become a little bit more of a Bitcoin podcast, and sometimes it barely gets mentioned, because I'm of a theory that if we're just going to live in the Bitcoin bubble, we're going to miss life. You need inspiration, and you got to walk outside that door. Like I said in that song, you did with the AI, made it right. You got to get off your ass and walk out the door. You have to get out in the world. Even if it upsets you, you got to have experience. You can't be a well-rounded human without it. So it's just sometimes the me bitching about shit, sometimes me bitching about shit, sometimes her bitching about shit, and sometimes it says angry cunts, but it's mostly tongue in cheek and a lot of laughter that goes on with it. Because if you can't laugh, you're gonna cry. That's the only other reaction you got. So I'd rather laugh.
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, it was Sylvie's idea. Well, that's why I call her the producer. She doesn't like that.
You got these fire phone calls talking about interesting things. You're not happy with the NSA being the only ones listening in. You want to share it with the rest of the world. I think it's great.
Yeah, I mean, everybody. Well, when I had my podcast back in the 2020 and 21 era, it was called Bar Stools, Bitcoin, and Bullshit. And it was basically, okay, how would a conversation go if you're sitting on a bar stool next to somebody and say hello? Sometimes it goes good, sometimes it goes nowhere, But it's that whole idea of conversation, because I think conversation's a lost art. People just, with the internet, we talk at each other a lot, we type it, and there you go. Now you respond, we're not talking with, we're talking at. It's not like sitting at a table. Like we did at Lake Satoshi. We're talking with each other, right?
Yeah.
Can you hear those dogs? Sorry about that. There's cows walking in front of the house and the dog's going nuts.
I don't like cows.
I like to eat them. I truly like to eat them.
I think cows are gross.
But well, they do poop a lot and big poops, but I like to eat them.
They like to hump each other too. It's really weird.
Yeah. Well, we live in open range here, so they're just roaming. You got to watch out for them at nighttime. You really got to watch out for them because cows will just walk right in front of your car. They're dumber than deer.
You'll honk at them. They'll just keep on sitting there. You got to crawl forward. You ever get a cow get aggressive with you?
No. Now, 'cause sometimes they're where I have to go to get water, fill up our water tank. I go over there, and there's some days because there's not a lot of water out here in the desert. So when water spills over, when people are filling up the big tanks, so we got like a 500-gallon tank that I go and get it, and it spills over, and they're up there. They want to drink water, and they're in the way. But usually they'll move with a honk of that, or you get out, and sometimes the calf is there. All you got to do is touch the calf, and it takes off running. But there's sometimes, if it's a girl with horns, I'm not that scared. But bulls with horns, because they're bulls, they can get aggressive. So it's like anything else. It's like the buffalo. It's like the people in Yellowstone that, oh, look at the cute little buffalo. If you don't put yourself in front of a bull, you'll probably never get in problem with a bull. I've had to move a bull once with the front of my truck. He just wouldn't move. I couldn't get to the water, and I just kept inching up. And I touched his body. He still didn't move, so I touched him a little bit more. And finally, he moved, and he took his horn and kind of whacked it around on the truck. Yeah. So, but if I see it's a bull, I pretty much let him have his way. But the girls, the heifers, they're not usually a problem. They're pretty docile. They've come to know that humans can kill them and shit like that. But it's okay. It's okay. It's just one of those things to live the way I want to do out here in the middle of nowhere without a lot of population. You got these things you put up with.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been hearing a lot about this idea of people losing the ability to have conversation. That's never really been much of an issue for me. Generally, the issue for me is I like to have conversations on topics people don't like to talk about, typically. But that's why.
Now you don't. I mean, you don't have it. I mean, you're like me in that sense. You don't have a problem talking because you're not scared or shy of it. You just talk because that's all it is. It's just a conversation. Why everybody's scared of it, And then somebody says, "Well, I'm not interested. I don't want to talk." Shit, you might learn something from somebody if you just listen a little bit. That's one of the greatest arts of the conversation is actually listening, not talking. You might learn something.
Absolutely. People are interesting for the most part.
Yeah.
There's some boring people.
Everybody's got a story to tell. And it may not be all that glamorous and exciting, but they've got a story. Every one of us. The minute you're born, your story starts. There's a song in there somewhere. But yeah, I think so. But the art of conversation is it's great, and it's like I joke about it before the internet became the thing. We're talking hundreds of years, thousands of years, where that's all you had was a conversation because you didn't have nothing else, right? And how quickly that human form of communication is falling away quick. And I have no idea why, because it's more entertaining to me. Like when we were there at Lake Satoshi, all of us just hanging out, talking, having a good time. That, to me, was better than anything. I mean, I just had a great time. And immediately after this first day, I'm like, I'm coming back next year, because I like that. And that's like where I met Sylvia, that's Cattleman's Feast for that. That's all it was. Just people talking to each other, hanging out, eating good beef and drinking beer and saying, hey, what's up? Blah, blah, blah. All different walks of life. I think that's part of it. Everybody gets pigeonholed, because we got the boomers, we got the Gen Xers, the millennials, the Gen Zs, and all that shit. Everybody wants to be pigeonholed or doesn't necessarily want to be, but they feel that's where they are. So like a young person may not sit down and talk with an older person. because they're like, well, what do they got? I'm not going to be interested in anything they're telling me.
I don't
I
want
don't
to
know
have
about
sex.
you.
I don't want to have sex with the older person. That's what they're thinking.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. And if you've never tried it, you never know. So, anyways, but I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, I loved talking with people older than me because they had more life under the belt. They taught me things I wouldn't have known, or I would have known, but maybe I would have learned the hard way. But if you meet an older person that's a good conversationalist stuff, you'll never be bored. And same thing, there may be a old person that they don't want to talk to a young person, but then the young person is a good conversationalist, and so everybody has a good time. And maybe the old person learns a little thing from the younger person because the old person has their idea of the world, right? And then the young person kind of opens them up to something else. It can happen.
Well, I think this
But
is part of the
without
reason. So public schools are turning people retarded, and I think it's for multiple
Oh
reasons.
God, yeah.
They've essentially outlawed smoking. When I was growing up, smoking was outlawed. We still smoked. We would go and sneak out or hide in somewhere where people were watching. We'd smoke cigarettes. We couldn't. I guess I was kind of born ungovernable. We didn't give a shit. But they banned smoking. These kids are vaping.
Yeah, and who knows what's in that juice?
Well, you got these parents. They're wage slaves. They're wage slaves, and so they kind of default to the subsidized daycare in public education, and
that's exactly what it is.
They both have to work so they can pay their taxes, and they come up with these justifications of like, well, we need to send our kids to public school so that they're socialized, because if they don't go to public school, they won't be socialized. And look what's happening.
That's a load of shit these days. Yeah, it's not. They don't get socialized at public school these days. They get indoctrinated, and they can only socialize with those that believe the same way they do. They can't have that conversation because immediately it turns into whatever the fuck it turns into. Like my wife now, she is teaching second grade at the little elementary school here, Mount Tipton Elementary. And she brings the books home and tells me what's happening there. And I'm like, sweetie, she'll get stressed out. And I'm like, don't get stressed out. You're a glorified babysitter. I said, do this. I said, bring back show and tell. And of course, she's not from this country. And she's like, what's show and tell? I go, everybody either brings in something that is theirs and talks about it in front of the class, or they tell a story of something. I said, that's how you can get a conversation started in socializing. Because I don't know about you, but that was in my grade school. And I always joke about it because in the fifth grade, when I was in the fifth grade, Michael Jackson and Jackson 5, right, were Gary, Indiana, right? I went in one day at show and tell and tried to convince everybody that Michael Jackson was my cousin. Now, we know that can't be had, but I told a good story, right?
And sorry, how old did you say you were when you did this?
I was in the fifth grade. Grade. This would have been about 68.
I think fifth grade.
This is before Michael Jackson.
They're still a little bit gullible at that age.
Yeah, but show and tell was you brought in something from your house that maybe it was just a toy, and you told the whole classroom about it. So what it did, it made you be creative. Tell what you got here. Or you come in and you just tell us a story about whatever, your grandma, your grandpa, whatever, something you did over the summer, whatever. But it was that thing of communicating.
Yeah. I think the thing that's interesting, that I experienced in public school, the people that change the world are the people that are willing to do things that are different. And what I saw in school growing up was that everybody was looking at each other for cues on who they should be and what they should be, and everybody was trying to be what the other person thought they wanted to be. And
Mhm.
it's backwards. Like the freedom and enjoyment in life comes from doing the things that you want to do instead of the things that you think you're supposed to do. Or at least that's what
Oh
I've
yeah,
experienced.
yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, you look at it. The people that have changed the world. One thing is they were usually kind of social outcasts. They didn't fit in, and they did something because they had a feeling inside their guts, and they said, "This is what I'm going to do, and it's going to work." You know, you can just use a modern day one. You know what Steve Jobs did. He wasn't looking to anybody else to do all that shit. He had these ideas. And granted, he didn't technically get everything done, but he was a dreamer. You know, the world needs crazy fucking dreamers to come up with shit. And you can look at the education of that, you know, like certain things. Of course, it's back in time, but, you know, the fucking, my grandpa, 6th grade education, that's it. He's the smartest man I ever fucking knew because it was in the Depression. He had to go to work for the family, right? He had to go to work. So dropped out of school. Yeah, you look at Goodyear Tire and Rubber. That motherfucker dropped out in 5th grade, and he started Goodyear Tire and Rubber. Now, granted, that's way back in the day, but education beyond reading, writing, and arithmetic, really, what are they going to fucking teach you? You know, you need to know how to do addition and subtraction and multiplication so you don't get taken by people. You need to be able to read, and you need to be able to write. But everything else in this world can be learned just going outside that fucking door and experiencing life. And if it's you know, like technical stuff, like a surgeon. You know, it's like, I look at like doctors and stuff. I don't have much esteem for hardly any doctors. Surgeons I do because they're like the mechanics of the human body. They cut you open and keep you alive. They may do something, right? But a general practitioner, what do they know now? They know how to prescribe you a drug. So I don't hold them in high esteem.
The Bitcoin
You know?
mechanics of the medical world.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
I've always been more inclined to the mechanical side of life instead of the electronic digital side of life. I just think mechanics. And that's why you know, now I got another vehicle. It's brand new, 38 years old, you know, and it's all mechanical. I can work on it, right? But if it had computers and shit, you know, computers and shit, you open up the hood, and these new cars, you go, well, fuck, okay, can't do nothing there, you know. But I think because it was back in the day when it really started hitting, like my parents were all about me going to college, and when I dropped out after the first year, I was like the scourge of society, right? And that's how a lot of people looked at me too, you know, because I dropped out with 1 year and said, fuck this shit. You know, and I think, and that was when higher education was cheap. I can tell you a story. I asked my dad. I went to Arizona State out here, and I was from Indiana. So out of state tuition, this is 1981. It cost my dad $900 a semester. That was it. Out of state for a college education. What's that cost now? You know?
It's probably
Crazy.
like $5 grand, $5 to $7 grand a semester.
Oh no, it's more. No, it's more than that. My niece, she applied. She's a dentist now. She applied to Arizona State because she wanted to be out here in Arizona. She still lives out here now. She's a dentist, but she applied, and that would have been 2000 and maybe 2005. And I said, "How much was the semester when you applied?" $10,000 a fucking semester.
Wow.
And I'm like, holy shit, you know. I don't even want to know. I never asked. My niece and my nephew are both dentists because their dad was a dentist and they became dentists. And I never asked them because I don't want to know. Because I know what my brother's dental school cost when he did it, and that was back in the fucking 80s still. I didn't want to ask him how much did it cost, you know, but it was a ridiculous amount of money.
Well, this is my problem with Bitcoin University and Matthew Cranner. It's the same exact phenomenon.
Is he charging for that?
Yeah, you gotta pay tuition to go to Bitcoin University. It's an unaccredited university. They'll tell you.
Wow.
They'll tell you need to run knots and that people laughing are bad actors. That's what you get with your education. It's very similar.
Good Lord. We must be geniuses because we learned it by ourselves. What the fuck is our problem? You know? I mean, that's what I always say when they always talk about things being hard at Bitcoin. I just go, I'm fucking, like you asked me earlier before we got on the air was, are you a Luddite when it comes to computers? Fucking hell, yeah. So how did I learn about all this stuff? I didn't know a fucking thing about it. And in fact, I'm against most of it, right? But when I found Bitcoin, I was like, well, I'm not going to be stupid. I'm going to learn this. You know, I ain't got to went in. You know, it's like I joke about it. I went in I'm like the redneck Michael Saylor. I went in with everything I fucking had, and I had a bit in the bank because I'm no debt, and I'm a saver and all this shit. And I just went hog wild and did it. You know, but I learned about it, and it wasn't hard to learn. I will admit, the first time I transferred sats from where I bought them when I started out, I just bought on Swan like everybody else did back then. And when I transferred it to my hardware wallet, and there was like that 10, 15-minute gap, and it says it's left Swan, but it's not in my wallet yet, I can tell you I was fucking having a fit, freaked out, going, this goddamn technology, motherfuckers. And then when it showed up, I was never like that again. Whenever it transferred, it's like, yeah, it'll be there. It'll get there. You know?
Absolutely.
And, I mean, it's not hard. There's nothing hard about Bitcoin. Learning how to maybe use it and spend it wisely, that can be hard. You know, I guess it's hard, but usually it's just learned by a hard lesson, you know, but I don't even think that's hard, you know.
I'll tell you,
everybody gives
the Lightning Network's hard.
Is it? I've never had trouble with it.
I have trouble with it every day.
Do you? Well, I don't use every day, but when I have used it, I used it at least, I don't know, maybe close to 100 times, and every time it just goes through. Never had a trouble with it. The only time I had trouble with it was when I had the Breeze wallet, and that sometimes went sideways. But I've never had a problem with it. That's just me, though. Maybe I'm lucky. Maybe I get lucky on that. But I hear about all those troubles that everybody talks about, and I'm like, well, shit, I never had it. You know.
Well, if you created a YouTube channel with tutorials on how not to have issues with the Lightning Network, I'd probably watch it.
Well, you know me, I don't peruse much shit. It's either to me it either works for me, and if it doesn't work for me, I never use it again. So yeah, it's just me. But I've never had a problem with it, you know. But I know I hear people do, you know, and stuff, and you know, I hear like with Government Misfits when they start talking about Monero and all that. I'm like, oh shit, I don't want to even fucking learn it. You know, maybe I should, but I don't. I don't want to learn it. You know, I wish, and if there was a perfect world, I joke with this. I say this all the time. A perfect world, mass adoption is not getting more people into Bitcoin. Mass adoption would be, let's just say, Walmart said they would start accepting Bitcoin, and it was so easy as to take your phone in, scan it, pay for your groceries and all that shit. Mass adoption would happen because if Walmart did it, every other retail chain on earth would start doing it. And then people would get into it going, well, they're using it. Let's go in, you know. But just telling, because it doesn't seem to, you know, the store value and yeah, your money's not going away and shit. That doesn't seem to connect with most people. You know, because most people, you know, you got to figure 90% of the human race is fairly money stupid, you know. So they're not going to understand that. They understand, they open their wallet and they have cash in it, or they get their banking app. I've got money. They don't think nothing else of it. And then they stay wage slaves forever because they just don't want to learn it or know it. And you can beat them over the head with them and they don't get it, you know, because like I said, 90% of the population is not. Were you ever taught when you were growing up? Were you ever taught a fucking thing about money?
I didn't grow up Jewish,
Well,
so no, I didn't learn about money.
no, we were never taught. I mean, and I was back there when school was almost still school, but we were never taught it. All we were ever taught was this: how you balance your checkbook. No, that's not teaching you a fucking thing about money. The only thing I was taught about money was from my grandma and grandpa because they lived through the Depression. And what they taught me was save it, save it. And that was pretty easy sell to my age group because when I joke about it, when I was 8 years old, my dad opened up a savings account for me. And you know what the interest rate was on my little baby boy savings account?
5%.
It was 8%.
Okay.
It was 8. Yeah. You know, because the joke was back then, because nobody saw the interest rates disappearing. Sometimes, and if you had more money in, you get 10%. And the deal was, well, if you can get $1 million in the bank, you know, this is back in the 70s, and you can get that 10% interest, that's $100,000 a year. You can live fucking fine. But that went away. And then they turned everybody into shitty investors or 401k people. Yeah, you love it. What's your money going into in that 401k? Oh, I don't know. Just what they put it in. They don't even know where the money goes. It just disappears out of the fucking check. You know? So that's why 90% of the population is just illiterate when it comes to that.
Well,
so I think go ahead.
I'm gonna break and go back to the music, but one of the challenges is, you know, when you're trying to explain Bitcoin to people, you got to realize that they're excited about the Taylor Swift wedding. That's the type of people you're dealing with. They're not listening to Bitcoin podcasts.
Yeah. No, they were so happy a week ago when she got engaged. You know, that's their big deal.
She's like the American version of Princess Diana. That's where she's at right now.
Yeah. Which is weird. Which is really weird. You know, and it says a lot.
But
you know,
the good news is, folks, not everybody's like that. There's people out there using their brains. There's people out there creating good music. Yep. There's people out there, and it's my mission to help connect them. That's kind of what I'm trying to do with this this music show. That's why we got Bubba here tonight. So next two songs we got coming up, we got another Jesse Wells song called Horses, and then we've got The River of Love by the Space Cowboys, which was a band that you were
I've heard of those guys.
Yeah. I want to, after we come back from the music, I want to talk about your music career.
Okay.
But here we go, folks. We got Horses by Jesse Wells.
All my flannels made in Bangladesh, all my t-shirts in Vietnam. There are places that we quietly ignore. There are places that we go and bomb. You know, I thought an awful lot about Jesus, even more about life too. They say that the way of the Tao was to do nothing. Then what the hell am I supposed to do? You know, the harder you think, the deeper you sink, the tighter you grip, the more it you slip. So I'm singing this song about loving all the people that you've come to hate. It's true what they say, I'm gonna power, and thinking happy was just born fools. Thought I was gathering oats for my horses. I was getting by whipping my mule. There's a book I read, I don't remember. There's a place I've been, I've never seen. There's a note that I wrote that went up in smoke. There's some songs I don't ever sing. All the stars in the sky are burning. Most are burning unbeknownst to me. I wish I would have paid more attention to the bigger things I didn't see. You know, the harder you think, the deeper you sink, the tighter you grip, the more that you slip. So I'm singing this song about loving all the people that you've come to hate. It's true what they say, I'm gonna die someday. Why am I holding on to all this weight? You know, I really thought that there'd be power, and thinking I'd be always just born fools. Thought I was gathering oats for my horses. I was getting by with my mules. I got some bricks so thick that they don't make sense, and the walls up in my mind. When life is pretty short and the road's got forks, so I take them down while I got time. You know, the harder you think, the deeper you sink, the tighter you grip, the further you slip. So I'm singing this song about loving all the people that you've come to hate. It's true what they say, I'm gonna die someday. Why am I holding on to all this weight? You know, I really thought that there'd be power, and thinking happy was just born fools. Thought I was gathering notes from my horses. I was getting by with my mules. Days go by so slowly, raindrops pound my window pane. I can hear you whisper, darling, when will I see you again? So I watch the news on television, I watch the midnight sun, lie awake and dream about the day that you will come back home to me. Everything's gonna work out better, it's gonna be you and me together. River of love will flow forever. I heard your voice come down the wire into my ears last night. You said that you was lonely, but it told me goodnight. So I watched the news on television, bask in the midnight sun, lie awake and dream about the day that you will come back home to me. Everything's gonna work out better, it's gonna be you and me together. River of love will flow forever. And the sun is shining, the rain falling heavy on the ground. My heart is burning, and the saints going to fly. The moments seem like hours, and each pleasure feels like pain. And the fireman shovels on the road to fuel his crazy train. Everything's gonna work out better, it's gonna be you and me together. We'll go forever. Everything's gonna work out better, it's gonna be you and me together. River of love will flow forever.
So yeah, let's talk about your music career, Bubba. So you were you singing backup vocals in that song? Is that what you told me?
Yeah, believe it or not, I was singing those high background vocals, which I could nowhere get near today. But that and in the bridge, when you hear the two vocals straight off, I'm the one with gravel in my voice. And my brother Chuck Wagon, he's the clear voice one. So yeah, we wrote that. We wrote that in a day of didn't have nothing else to do. We wrote it and then decided to record it because it seemed to get a really good reception every time we played it live. So okay, let's do it. It was just one of those songs, song about longing, But yeah, that was me singing those pretty high lonesome harmonies.
So when did you get started with music?
I was a late starter. I didn't start till the summer of when I graduated high school. That's when it started, and I quickly learned because I didn't even play guitar then. I quickly learned that I was getting in some garage band with some guys, and I had all these songs. What I called songs is just words, and I'd tell them what was in my head, but without being able to give them chords and melody, it came out like a lot of other shit. It sounded like the 80s and stuff, and I didn't want that. So then when I told you I quit college at 1 year, and my parents said, "What the hell are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to start a rock and roll band." And they said to me, "Well, you don't even play guitar." I said, "I can learn." So I learned to play guitar and get enough chords. I went to one music lesson. I learned Bob Seger's Night Moves, and that had like 5 chords in it. I was like, shit, that's rock and roll. I can do anything now. So I quit and just learned the rest of the way on by ear, and could start writing and putting melodies and then transferring it, then getting a band. And then it slowly became more my band because we would do like that, But basically, my career was in the bars, but we did a little different. Like that band that you just heard of, Space Cowboys, which was actually we had more fun than anybody. But back in the day, you had to play covers. Mm-hmm. And mostly they wanted top 40 covers. Or we were in the college town, so we were playing the college circuit, so we'd have to play. They wanted you to play like the REMs and all that shit. And I like that stuff, but I always said, nope, because then it's going to be a job. We're going to be a jukebox, and I don't want a job. So we're going to do 50% originals and 50% covers. And of course, the band, that spurred them on. They all started writing some stuff because I said, well, I can't, because the way it works when you write a song, Daryl Hall said it best. Out of every 10 songs, you might get one that's good. In the way they would record albums back in the day and stuff, they would come in with 100 fucking songs and only 10 would make the album. That's how it works. You got to write a lot of crappy ones to get a good one, right? So everybody started writing, and we kind of changed the movement there in little old Bloomington, Indiana, which transferred down to Louisville, Kentucky, and so forth and so on. But a lot of bands started playing originals because the ones they'd always come backstage and be like, "God damn it, we wish we could do that," and we would always joke on, "Yeah, well, we wish you had your paycheck," because I told them all, I said, "You start playing that many originals, you're not going to make the money you're making right now, and you're going to have the day job and suffer." But that's what you do, right? For your art, you suffer. So we all had day jobs mostly. Space Cowboys got to the point where we were making enough money that was our job. We would play like 3 or 4 nights a week and make just enough money that we could afford good hot dogs and top tier ramen, But we were good. That was when you could rent. Hell, I was renting a house back then, 2-bedroom house. Yeah, it would have been 88 or so, somewhere around there, for $350 a month. Had a roommate, so it was 175 for me. 175 for me, 175 for him. So it was a little bit easier to be a starving artist. Which shit, you can't do that these days. But we did that, and then basically we did it. We didn't have social media, so we would go into these towns, get booked in these towns, and do everything imaginable to try to garner an audience. And we would, once we got them in the door, we had them. It was getting them into the door. Once we got them in the door, we had them, and we got close. Well, I did. I went down to Nashville in '86, songwriter. I got close, but I walking along 16th or walking along Music Row there. One door would say, "You're too country," and another door would say, "You're too rock." And I'd be like, "How can I be both?" But it was the way it was. But I got close 2 times to getting signed to a deal. But that was back in the day where when the A&R person, they were they were your champion. And A&R people would get fired at the drop of a dime. And once they got fired, then all the interest that you thought you had at the label just kind of went away. I got close a few times, and that was, it was heady at the time, thinking we would sign on the dotted line and going to be a rock star, all that shit. It didn't pan out, but I would never trade it for anything. It was, like I tell people, it was the best decade of my life, and I didn't have any money. I didn't have shit. I had nothing. I was a starving artist, and it literally was the most fun 10 years I ever had. But we did change. Like I said, we changed the musical landscape. We got a lot of bands interested in writing their own shit, and it kind of took over. And now it's kind of gone away again, because in the towns where we used to play, there used to be like, you get booked at 5 or 6 different joints. And now there's only 1 joint or 2 at the most, and they're booking in, the cover bands, Hairbangers Ball and shit like that. It's just part of that change, But back in the day, like now it's like amazing how cheaply people can get Pro Tools, right? Put it on a computer and record in their living room. When we had to record, we'd have to go to a studio. We may have had to have $10,000 to record 3 songs. That's it. That's all you're going to get. And shit. So the only way to do it was live. And if you got a good manager on your side, which is a lot harder than people think, getting a good manager. Actually, because you need a manager that believes in you. Doesn't see you as just an ATM machine. They actually believe in what you're trying to do. So, but it was totally different than it is now. Totally different. It's easier now to get music out, but it's no easier to get an audience than it ever was. Because it's just, you got to have a sound that taps a vein in people and they like it. That's all you need. But yeah, you can get it out on YouTube. Everybody can have their YouTube videos and stuff. It's just that's one good thing about what technology did, except that it turned every thing recorded. Like I like to say, we live in an analog world, but everything we're supposed to deal with is digital. Like how you hear things, right? It's a sound wave, right? It looks like a wave in the ocean. It goes up and down and all that stuff. And that's what sounds good to the human ear. But when you digitally record stuff, it's squared off. Think about a lot of rectangle squares. So that's why digital recordings, and that's virtually what everything is now, sound different. When you go back and listen to an old record, you're like, God damn, that just sounds good. But that's just more technology.
It's super interesting.
But it was a yeah. I mean, because that's with the sound wave thing, that's just digital. I mean, we hear things in analog. That's all our ears can do. We hear digital, and like how sometimes now it's like when I listen to stuff digital, it's like the cymbals and the high notes are like, God damn, that almost hurts. Because it's not a smooth wave. It's just and it comes at you. And that's why the bass, even the low end, kind of sounds stale because it's not analog.
Something that I think's really cool, just for anybody listening right now, Stardust is selling records on Noster. They've got like a special
Oh, are
Noster
they
sale.
selling vinyls?
Yeah.
Yep. Did they record it in an analog or digital? Probably.
I imagine they probably did it digitally.
Yeah. That's what's weird, because the vinyl's coming back, which is like everybody wanted to get rid of vinyl back in the day, right? And here come the CDs, and then now we're coming back to vinyl. But there again, I haven't listened to any new vinyl that's come out because my brain says, wait, it's still digital. So it's that sound. It's like I call squares and X's or squares and rectangles. So I don't know how a new vinyl sounds compared to, something you go pull out an old album from the 70s or 80s, go, well, okay. Because the digital came in the 80s in recording. It was somewhere in there. The 70s and back, that's when everything you hear is analog. And that even took more skill, because you've seen documentary stuff where they're editing the tape and they're taking a razor blade and cutting it and stamping it together and stuff. That was an art form, They would edit that way. They would actually cut the tape and just, cut that part out, and then they cut it in there. And you would be in the studio, because I was an engineer for a very short period of time, and you put your hand on the tape reel and roll it back and forth slowly, and hear the backward shit. And then you'd hear that drum beat, and you'd hear that, okay, you cut. And then you bring the tape forward, and then, that's where you're going to cut. You take a whole part out, just the tape. And the ones who were really good at it, seamless, the way they could do that. That was an art form. And the mixing, the recording engineer, where he placed mics, that was a big deal. Like Led Zeppelin drums, they're fucking great sound. The way that engineer did that. The best is do you know the Led Zeppelin song "When the Levee Breaks"?
Oh yeah.
Okay, they record those drums. They put Bonham at the bottom of a stairwell and put microphones up through the stairwell.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they got that.
I saw a documentary
and the way that they would record. Yeah.
They rented out a house because they liked the acoustics of it, and they recorded the album.
Exactly. Yeah. Back in the day, people like that, Smoke on the Water, Deep Purple. That thing was recorded in a castle in Geneva, Switzerland. And the song "Smoke on the Water" was because there was something was burning, and the smoke literally hung down on Lake Geneva. That's where that song comes from. Burnt some of and it was actually them that kind of burnt it up, their mobile unit and stuff. But they used to record everywhere, in all kinds of places and things, just to get a certain acoustic, Well, like I mentioned earlier, Mellencamp's album, it was a shell of a house in Jackson County, Indiana, and had no walls, no nothing. And that's where they recorded it. They brought down the mobile unit and set the mics up, and there it went. And what you get on record sounds live, sounds real, But with digital recording, it almost doesn't matter. You could be in that room, but the microphone's going to pick up what they're going to pick up. You got to put up a lot of room mics, what they call them. You got the instruments mic'd, but then like the guitar, say you got a guitar amp and you got a mic up in the speaker there, and then you set another mic across the room. If it's a real live room, an echoey room or whatever, and you want to get that noise, you set another microphone up about 25 feet away, and you get that echo, and you mix those two things together. Same thing with drums and everything else like that. There was more of an art form to it, because so much music now is not being produced that way, And there again, it's just changing times. And the only people that seem to worry about it is, people like me or whatever that listen to older shit. We miss that noise. It's just changing times, and But I think if they would start recording again, real live music, in a studio set up with the band. A lot of bands would set up in a corner, and the only thing that had like a barrier around it was the drummer, just to try to keep some of that bleed out of all the microphones. But the best albums were always recorded live. You know, it's like the fucking Beatles album, the first Beatles album, they recorded that fucking thing and mixed it in 1 week. Everything live. You know, fuck, that's great, right? You know, people hear that now, you know, and it still sounds great, but different times, different way of doing it, you know?
Just for context for the listeners, the way that they record music today is they record, a lot of times they record people individually and then they'll layer the tracks all over each other.
Yes.
So instead of
Yep.
the band playing all at once, they'll do it individually. It's very, very different.
Yep. Yeah, it's sterile. You know, it's like being in a hospital room. Like, cause what they used to call it back in the day, they would record basic tracks and then put the overdubs on. The basic tracks were generally the drums and bass and a guitar and maybe a scratch vocal so that everybody could stay together, right? Then they would go in and put in, you know, your lead solos or double the guitars or whatever they do. You know, but those basic tracks were generally recorded live. But to me, it's still, you know, I did all my fucking studying back in the day because I wanted to be. The albums that always sound best to me, I could hear it and go, fuck, they're live. And sure enough, I'd read an article or something by the engineer or something, and they were basically set up in a circle. And they just recorded it live. Sometimes the live vocal would be so good that they'd go back and redo a vocal and they'd be like, no, that's not it. That's not it. You know, it was that whole live thing. Because the hardest thing about a live band going into a studio is when they're live, they're feeding off the audience, right? The energy coming off the audience. Well, when you go into a studio, there's no audience. So you don't have that energy, that same level of energy. There was a band out of Nashville back in the day called the Floating Men. And their first album, it's a good album, but it's kind of sounded stale. And what they were the neatest band, it was one acoustic guitar, one acoustic bass, and a drummer. But they did very melodic shit and great songwriter because Jeff was a Southern boy. So he wrote like how you would think a Southern writer used to write, right? Fictional writer. But anyways, what they did to record their second, third album, they invited the core group of their fans to come down to Nashville and sit in the studio. They wouldn't clap or nothing. They had to be quiet when they were recording, but to see the faces, so the heads are bobbing and shit like that. But those albums came out sounding better because you could feel it in their musicianship. It was real. They were feeding off the audience. I always thought that was a great idea.
Absolutely. Yeah, one of the things I really when I find a band that I like to see their stuff on YouTube if they're performing live.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because I think
that's the telltale sign.
Yeah, if they're really talented. Like I've been pushing Noah Stardust to release her live music on Spotify. She has it all on YouTube, and it's really good. It's really, really good. Like,
well, you sent me that, and you sent me that live thing, and I was like, holy shit, these people can fucking play.
Yeah.
I mean, just they're fucking players. They're real musicians that ain't fucking around. They're good, you know.
They're also
but
they're good performers too.
Go ahead.
They put on a good show.
She's very theatrical.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what a front person needs to be. I mean, the front person, I always wanted to name one of my bands the Dancing Monkey and the Organ Grinders, because my joke was I was never that great of a musician, but I was smart enough to surround myself with great musicians, because my job was to fucking entertain the audience. get them into it. That was my job. You know, the MC, I guess you would say, the MC, the party uh, master, whatever it was. That was my thing. You know, and the rest of the band, you guys be the technically great guys. I'm going to go out here and I'm going to make people fucking smile and get into it. And they're going to laugh, they're going to cry, whatever. But that's what I'm going to do. But they never wanted, nobody ever wanted to be that name. And I said, what's the problem? I'm the dancing fucking monkey, you know, not you guys. You guys are the organ grinders, you know, you're the musicians. But like you said, though, seeing stuff live, that's when you know this is real. They're real. They can play it.
Well, have you ever had the experience where you listening to a musician that you like a lot and then you go and see them live and they just absolutely suck? Does that ever happen to you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Back in the day. Yeah. I mean, sometimes it was that they didn't put on a show. You know, it's like Boston, right? You know that first album of Boston, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows that. More Than a Feeling and all that shit. I had to go see it live because that album changed the world when it came out, right? And you know if you know the story behind how that was recorded, because Tom Schultz was the only one on that album besides the drummer and the singer. They recorded in his basement. He was an MIT graduate, he's an engineer, right? And all that sound was one guy, you know, the guitar stuff. But live, it sounded absolutely just like the fucking record. But watching them, like, okay, you gonna do anything? Really? Come on, just shake a leg once. You know, they were such perfectionists that the live show wasn't quite there. Now the singer Brad Delp, he performed, but the band, it sounded. I'm not kidding you. You can go on YouTube Boston Live and you'll see they sounded just like the fucking record, but it was boring to watch. Simply boring. And then some bands would suck so bad live. Like one of my favorite rock and roll bands ever was the Replacements out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. These guys, you didn't know if you were going to get them drunk as fuck and playing Bad Company covers, or if it was going to be a good night, they're playing their shit.
Mm-hmm.
But they were so loud. They come out of the punk movement, right? But they were so loud and so obnoxious that even on their good nights, their best nights, they were not that good players, but they put out a feeling out of the stage and it came back from the audience. So seeing live stuff is like, well, it depends on what you're looking for, perfection or not. I mean, one of the best live shows I ever saw, this will sound weird, but it was Neil fucking Diamond. Unbelievable performer. An unbelievable band. He had strings up on the stage and shit. It was unfucking believable. You know, I mean, I'd seen my first concert ever was Elvis Presley. All right.
Wow.
So I got to see that. Yeah, I was 10 years old. Mom was sick. Dad took me. And I was in like the 10th row, dead center in front of the man. And I always told my dad when I quit college, I always go, you know, it's your fault. You took me that fucking show. And I thought, I'm a 10-year-old boy and I see underwear flying on stage and shit and him having such a good time. I went, I think I want to do that. You know? But yeah, Kiss was one of those, but then they covered it up with the show. They were terrible live players, but they covered it up with the fire and the blood and the bombs and the shit, you know?
Totally.
But yeah, I've been lots of times seeing what I was really hyped up to see, and then it just dropped me, you know. But that's been more in the newer frame because you couldn't make it back in the day unless you were good live. You know, that's how you got signed. The record companies would come out. It'd be like a showcase gig, and the record companies would come out, and you're performing for them. And if you weren't no good live, you weren't getting signed, you know?
Yeah, now they're looking at TikTok.
Yeah, now they're looking at how many followers they got on TikTok. And who knows if any of that's real? We don't know. You know? It's just it's a different landscape. That's all it is. And is it for the better the way it is now? I can only speak from my perspective and say no, it is not. You know,
there's trade-offs.
Yep, complete trade-offs.
I think probably some things are better, and then some things are, worse.
Yeah. I don't. What I'd really hate, because I always say rock stars should retire at 50. Quit going out when you're old.
Yeah.
Because they have to have the tape loop. Like Paul Stanley at Kiss. They were running, a tape occasionally. Couldn't hit the notes. And Vince Neil and Motley Crue, they were doing that. It's like, come on, that's not live. The only reason you can't do it live is because, well, you're too fucking old to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when John Bonham died, and they always said, "Come on, Robert." And Robert Plant was the one that always said, "We're not doing it. We're not getting Zeppelin back together for nothing." And basically, he said it. He goes, "Once I hit like 45, because I couldn't sing that stuff no more and do it justice." That's honesty.
Yeah.
It's like they asked Steve Perry about that. With that kid from the Philippines came in for Journey, right? And Steve Perry said, "Well, I made the mistake when I was young. I sang really high, not thinking anybody want to hear me when I got old." So he doesn't mind it because he can't do it. He just flat out says he can't do it, and that's one of the best singers ever. But he's just being honest. I can't sing it.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, we it's interesting to see who's still touring. We got some old fuckers getting on stage.
I know. That's what I said. I think at 50 years old, it's good. Just stop and have your dignity and go away. You got the money.
These casinos.
Do the Eagles? Well, do the Eagles really need money? Really? Come on. We made jokes of it back in the day. That's the gas in the Mercedes tour.
These boomers, they want to listen to their boomer anthems. They want to listen
They
to Jimmy
relive.
Buffett play Margaritaville or whatever. And
they want to relive it. That's what it is. They want to relive it.
They're willing to take a break from gambling their Social Security away at the slot machines to go listen to Margaritaville one more time, or the Eagles.
One more time. Yeah. Well, Jimmy's passed, so they can't do that no more. But it's the same thing. It's like that's who's going to those shows. Me, I'm such a tightwad. And plus, I just know that it's not going to be, like the fucking, you name it from the day that I saw, back in the day, I'm not going to go. I saw Springsteen more than once, front row. I was a huge Springsteen fan. I know there's no goddamn way I'm going to see that show. He's 70 fucking plus years old. He can't do it. Can't do it no matter what, and it's like some of that, the beauty of Elvis dying early. Nobody ever had to see an old Elvis. They just had to see a fat Elvis, but he still sang, that's a good video for you to look up. Elvis singing Unchained Melody. It was basically, it wasn't, his last show was in Indianapolis before he died, but it's Elvis, fat fucking Elvis, sweating like a goddamn motherfucking pig, and his guys are talling him off, and he's sitting at the piano. He's playing the piano, and he sings Unchained Melody, and it was only a few months before he died. Fat as fuck, stoned out as fuck, God knows what drugs he's on, right? Sitting at the piano, and his voice was unfucking believable. He never lost the voice, and we didn't ever have to see him lose his voice, but we're sitting there watching him being fat as a motherfucker, sweating like a goddamn pig, and they're telling him off, but it was Elvis, So if you want to have some fun with that, Elvis sings Unchained Melody live, and it'll freak you out because he was so. That's not. You're not trained. That's a gift from God to have that. I mean, let alone he was so goddamn good looking back when he was young, but he had it all. He had nobody to teach him, right? He was the first rock star. So that's why he got so fucked up. Everybody just took advantage of the situation, you know. But
yeah. I like
those are days gone by.
The Elvis movie that came out recently was pretty good. It gave me an appreciation for him in a
Yeah.
new way. I've been
Yeah.
out to his house in Memphis. That was pretty
Oh,
cool.
have you?
Yeah. Like they call it Graceland. It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
He was a nut.
Yep. Well, he really, he never wrote a song ever,
Huh.
but he always got writing credit. Part of the publishing that the Colonel set up. But people didn't care. They would give Elvis half the publishing because they were going to make a bunch of fucking money off of it. The guys that wrote songs for him, like Mac Davis and stuff. But he was an unbelievable interpreter, and he could pick songs. He knew a good song when he heard it, and that's what he did throughout the '70s. You know, once he did the '68 special and came back, stopped doing all the Hollywood bullshit, and he came back. Great stuff, you know. It was great songs, you know, songs of the day. But he was doing covers, but he wasn't doing them like they were done. You know, he was a good interpreter. And his talent, you know.
Totally.
And we'll never see nothing like that again because even the closest thing, Taylor Swift, she's kind of like Elvis in that sense. You know, she's just huge, but it's Taylor, and where is all the excitement coming from? How old is the audience? You know, that's what kills me. I say this all along because we know on her first album that she did in Nashville, she wrote the stuff. She was a teenager, and so the songs sounded teenager, but they were good songs. And now she's like 30 whatever fucking old, 37, and it's like half these songs are still like from a teenager's perspective. And it's like, first off, Taylor, you're not really living in the real world. You're in the Taylor Swift world. So where's your experience come from? And my joke now that she's getting married is like, okay, how long does this marriage last? And when do we get the album title? Travis Kelce's an asshole album out of Taylor Swift. You know.
It'll be interesting to see. That's why everybody's excited about it, because they're excited for her to hit this new stage in life of music.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we're gonna make it through all the songs for tonight, but that's okay.
Yeah.
The next two songs I have, I believe you did. It's "Play the Night" and "The Night."
Yeah. Yeah, that was me. That was my last gasp. I was making demos. I had a guy that was investing. He was going to be an investor, and we were going to make a record. And then I fell through. You know, like it does. His money went away. And what you're hearing here, it was me sitting in my buddy Addison Ellis's little Nashville studio. I drove down to Nashville and we recorded it live to 2-track. So it's just me and the acoustic guitar. I'm singing live, playing live, and it's just that. It's live to 2-track because they were just supposed to be demos. You know, to get the song idea across to the musicians that were going to come in, and then we record it. But money fell through, and so you know that's why I named that demo session "Life Ain't All what is it? Strippers and Burritos," my friend. You know, because we thought it was going, and then the money just went away. So the dream died. You know. Because that was back when it's still you really need to spend money to release a record. You know, and it just went away. It was the last gasp.
Well, I'm excited to listen to him. I listened to him earlier, and I really enjoyed him.
Good. Well, it's been fun being on this with you tonight, Rick.
Well, we can keep on ripping for a little bit. I'm going to play these songs, and then we can come back and chat.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Here we go. We got "The Night" and "The Night" by Bubba.
Yeah.
Play your fantasies as if you can handle it. Lock your doors to keep reality out of it. Self-help psychology, hey, that's just a book. Lift up your head, your body, you done cares to look. Give yourself away, 'cause that's all that you know. Disguise it as some kind of strength that you control. But you just can't stand to be alone, and that's why you never stay at home, so you go out. Play the night. Wave your hair around as you dance through the clubs. Hiding in the shadows, tell yourself you're tough. So you move around through all the flashing lights. Only talk to aesthetically correct sides. Give yourself away, 'cause that's all that you know. Disguise it as some kind of strength that you control. But you just can't stand to be alone, and that's why you never stay at home, so you go out to play the night. By the light of a candle next to your bed, you fall in love, but not with the one that you're laying with. Your whole world's in your head, because that's where it's safe. But nobody will ever touch your creamy white skin. Another night, oh, what the hell, they're all the same. 'Cause you make it up as you go in your little game. You'll string another along if you think that they fit. Ah, but one of these days your looks will fade and the game will end. Give yourself away, 'cause that's all that you know. Disguise it as some kind of strength that you control. But you just can't stand to be alone, and that's why you never stay at home, so you go out to play the night. Yeah, you go out to play the night. You go out, play the night, play the night, play it, baby. Isn't that nice? Well, she grabbed my hand and made me dance to a local band that played too fast. She didn't look bad and she moved all right. She said, let's go on a fair into the night. There was a chill outside, she said, I need warm. Put arms around her and held her close. I could feel her breath on my ear. She whispered, don't let go, you got nothing to fear. Well, we walked the streets to the place that we could find the comfort we both needed tonight. And we fell into the night, into the night. We did fall into the night. Moonlight fell on her skin so smooth. She said there's no words, baby, just me and you. We laid down on a bed of white. She kissed my lips and held me tight. Though we rolled in our lover's bed, there wasn't meant to last. We both knew that this feeling would half-ass, and we fell into the night, into the night. We did fall into the night. The daylight brought a parting of ways, and as I opened the door, she asked me if I could stay for the rest of the day. We walked around and we had some laughs, shopped around and she bought a dress. The sun went down and we knew it was time to say goodbye, and we fell into the night, into the night. We did fall into the night.
Hell yeah.
Nothing like a love song about a one-night stand.
I really like that. I really like your voice a lot. So is that you playing the guitar?
Yeah.
So how many
playing and singing all at the same time.
So how many years had you been playing guitar at that point? You said you started playing guitar when you were 18.
So that would have been I was 18 in 81. And that was probably 92. So a decade.
Okay. And
yeah.
As far as singing went, did you just kind of learn how to sing yourself? Did you take lessons? Did you always have that style from the beginning when you sang? I would, yeah.
Yeah, I never took a lesson. It was just what came out of my mouth. And I think it's mainly because when I was young, my parents, my dad really had good musical taste, but my parents really had the work of the day. And I remember Dad putting on Otis Redding album. And when I heard that voice, and then Bob, I'm obviously a Midwestern boy. Here comes Bob Seger. Later on, here comes Mellencamp and stuff. So the influence of those guys, and the cigarettes, it's just how it works. That's what I can't tell you anymore. That's just when I open my mouth, that's what comes out. And it seemed to people back in the day that whenever there was a review, an article, whatever, it was always that the voice sounded authentic.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was my goal. I just wanted it as real as possible. That's why people said back in the day that live, when we were playing live, that other musicians would tell me, they're like, you have no fear. You'll just go for a note, even if you fall flat or sharp, you don't give a fuck. I said, no, I don't. I don't care. because it's all about a feeling. Everything was about a feeling to me. You know, is it authentic? Does it feel real? You know, and if it felt real, it was to me. And the people that were fans would say the same thing, you know. So I don't know. I kind of look at it as a blessing, but at the same time, it was sort of a curse because being from Indiana and Mellencamp being so popular and all those Midwestern boys, Bob Seger and so forth, I got pigeonholed into that. Oh, he's a poor man's version, you know. So, but I didn't care, you know, because to me that was, you're comparing me to people that I think are great. So okay, I'm good with that, you know. But now it was always remember the Memphis Soul people, Stax Records, you know, it was Otis Redding and all those guys. I love those black soul singers. God damn, I just loved them. I still do love them. When I hear something come out, it's just like, wow, the voice is just there. It's kind of like in New Day. You know who Chris Stapleton is, right?
Absolutely. I love Kurt Stapleton.
First time I heard that voice, I went, holy shit, you know. And that's where my ears always gravitated. And I have a theory about, because we all learn in the popular realm of music, whether rock and roll, country, or whatever, the only way we learn how to sing is actually by imitating in the beginning, because we don't know what we're doing. And then as years go by, you develop your own thing. But we all imitate who we love, you know. And like you know, Tom Petty, I love Tom Petty, but that's not my voice. It could never go there, but I love him, you know. But that was it, you know, trying to imitate the old soul guys and shit. And black soul singers, they're, to me, they're still the best thing that ever fucking happened, you know. I still love them. It's just rare that I hear that voice anymore. That's why when Stapleton came out, I was like, holy God, man, he's writing these things. He's playing that guitar. He's so different than the norm that's coming out of Nashville. He's just so goddamn different and so good at his difference, you know. So, but that's just how it was. I mean, I could have probably used a good couple singing lessons on breathing technique, because live I would run out of air and shit, you know. And that's when you hit the sharper flat notes and stuff like that. But I don't know if I could ever contain it, because when you get excited on stage, your adrenaline's running. It's running amok, you know, and you just go with it, you know.
Absolutely. Well,
That's just, go ahead.
Fortunately, we're kind of out of time, but Baba, I think we got to do this again.
Yeah, I'd gladly do it again. It was great.
I want to hear more about your music career. I want to hear about the creative ways that you roll into a town and get people's attention. I want to hear about managers, what it's like dealing with managers. I want to hear about, you have had such a incredible experience. I'm glad you're in this ecosystem. I had a blast with you at Lake Satoshi. I had a blast hearing your experience tonight. I enjoyed those two songs.
Vice versa.
I think the only way to wrap this up is with your song Grandma's Song. In the YouTube bio, it says, or description, it says, your favorite song you've ever written.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the simplest and favorite. It was, I was holding my grandmother's hand when she passed. And afterwards, my mom told me, well, because it was her mom, she said, Grandma, because Grandma was one of those people, even when I went off the rails and joined the circus, as I call it, you know, when I quit college and went out on the rock and roll journey, Grandma was always supportive. She was like, well, if that's what makes you happy, she's a very religious woman, and if that's what makes you happy, and she was my light, and she passed, and then out in the hallway, my mom told me, well, she wanted you to sing at her funeral. And I said, what? How? What and how? And she said, well, do you have anything? I said, no, but I can figure something out. And literally the next night, sitting around by myself in a room, had a little one-room apartment. That's all I had. And I just started singing the melody. It was the only song I ever wrote without guitar, and put the guitar to it later. And the melody and the words were right there. It couldn't have taken 5 minutes to do it, to write it. Now trying to sing at the funeral, holy God, that was a chore, because I'm trying not to fucking cry my eyes out and everything else. And that was the hardest thing of it. But yeah, it just was. It's what it was. It was the most heartfelt that any song could ever be, because that's what it is, So it came out okay, short and sweet and okay. And it's all true,
Well, you're making me cry now.
Well, I'm not trying to make you cry, Richard. But it's all true, that her and my grandpa's farm that's where I spent every weekend of my life. So when, the line of the horse running through the backfield, because we had a pony, and it went nuts one day, and I'd seen it in cowboy movies. Get in front of the horse, it'll stop. Well, not a pony. That motherfucker ran me right the fuck over. And she's yelling at me, don't do it, don't do it. But I was smarter. I'd seen cowboy movies, right? And I got run over by the horse.
Part of growing up.
Yeah, what was that?
It's a part of growing up, getting ran over by horses.
Yeah.
Builds character.
Yeah. Yeah, we were allowed to be run over by horses back then. Because you know what happened when I got ran over by that horse? My grandpa's over there. You ain't bleeding, get up. That's how it was. Nobody was rushing, calling 911. We were out in the country anyways, but he's like, you ain't bleeding, get up. I'm sitting there going there crying, because it hurt. A horse runs into you. Yeah, it hurt. Somehow I didn't break anything. But yeah. So yeah, that's Grandma's song.
I'm excited to play it. Bubba, where can people follow you? You got the Two Angry Cunts podcast.
Yeah, Two Angry Cunts podcast, and at Cool Beans Ranch on X, and I'm quietly on Noster as Fucknut.
So if I search Fucknut on Noster, I'll find you.
Yeah, I'm Fucknut. Yep.
I don't know if I'm following you or not. Let me check. I
think you did. I followed you.
Well, I don't know you as Fucknut, so. Let me see.
I know I followed you, so you can go in your follower and find me.
Looks like is you with your with the old truck. It says unique on the front.
I don't even know if I put up a picture. It may have just been like,
this is definitely you. It's definitely you got your motorcycle as your profile picture.
Okay, yeah, that'd be it. Yeah.
Following 19 people, got 7 followers. 8. I'm the 8th. Bubba, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm quietly on there.
Absolutely incredible having you on tonight. Absolute pleasure.
It. It's great. I mean, it was fast friends for us there at Lake Satoshi. Common thread.
Hey,
So
you're one of the only people that can pace me with cigarettes. It's hard that it's very rare that I find somebody like that.
yeah, well, yeah, I mean, thank God, because I ran out and I wouldn't leave until the next day. And here comes the night, and everybody's sitting around like, fuck, what the hell? But then you said, well, I got more. Okay, cool.
Dude, I come prepared. I know better. Um, so I got everybody's back. If they need cigarettes, I'm the guy.
Well, it's like Waylon Jennings we used to say, I can't breathe without these things.
Absolutely. Yeah, my philosophy on events, like, hey, I'm asking all these guys to boost my content, my music, boost my Zapmia Noster, boost my podcast. Like, if you're gonna be boosting my podcast, I'm gonna have cigarettes for you. That's for sure.
There you go. There you go. That's a good trade-off. Speaking of trade-offs, that's a good one. Yeah.
It's a value for value
Works.
relationship here.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, thanks again, Bobo. I'm going to send us out with Grandma's song. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this episode of Music Mondays on the PAZNIA Radio Network.
Thank you, man.
Running off the porch into a backfield, chasing a horse. You come through the screen door, shouting to be careful. I just laughed it off like a fool. I used to run wild, you'd shake your head. I never listened to a word you said. Thought I knew everything, yeah, I knew it all. You did the best you could before the fall. Taught me how love, is so sweet. How some things just won't keep. But your soul, my darling, will be with me forever. You will live in me. As the years went by, I got lost. You'd be there to help me, no matter the cost. What you said then seemed wrong, but now I know wisdom ain't wasted words, it's written in stone. If I'd have known then what I know now, I feel I might be better off somehow. And your soul, my darling, will be with me forever. You will live in me. And as God's light is shining down on you, you will live in me.
You're listening to the PAZNIA Radio Network.
LUA Pub Records presents the most inspirational alternative band in the world, Richard Greaser and the Bugle, featuring the first credentialed journalist, songwriter, and producer. Is he the next Leonardo da Vinci? No, he's just a man who smokes a lot of cigarettes and has a bachelor's in journalism. With great inspirational songs like The Princess and the Podcast Listener.
I need a Prince Charming to save me from my depression. A man whose full-time job is listening to Bitcoin podcasts.
The hit track, Non-Compliant 1776.
All across the country, the people are awakening. Politicians are quivering and shaking.
This one-of-a-kind album titled Now That's What I Call Defiance is filled with instant classics. This album is not available in stores, and limited digital quantities are available, so order now. Visit libertyunderattack.com/Bugle Music to order today.
Vonu Fest 6, the premiere, yearly gathering of self-liberation held at the Veritas node of the Free Republic of PAZNIA, happens once again this year, from September 22nd to the 29th. Join fellow self-liberators in our vetted agora, in the second realm, and soak up knowledge from those deep within the realms of breakthrough energy, health and wellness, open source technology, privacy and security, and much more. Alongside that, enjoy the nights around the campfire, underneath the Veritas skies untampered by city light pollution. A perfect view of the cosmos, great conversations, and connections that will last a lifetime. And while this event is not public and therefore not open to just anyone, getting vetted to come out isn't usually that hard. We either have to find someone in common that will vouch for your reputation, or just email Coordinator Rio, coordinator@PAZNIA.com, and send an introduction and background to your liberated lifestyle and path of self-liberation. That's a damn good start, and one that has gotten some folks out here a well-tread path. Anyway, join us for Vonu Fest 6, happening from September the 22nd to 29th. Most are only able to make it for the weekend, but vetted self-liberators are encouraged to stay before and after if desired. Thanks for your time. PAZNIA.com.
Now that the technological foundation is laid for the PAZNIA Radio Network, we are now ready to start building out a regular, and more frequent transmission schedule of self-liberational media. Do you want to host your own show on the PAZNIA Radio Network? Do you already have a show or podcast that you would like premiered or replayed during our transmissions? Something else? Reach out to Coordinator Rayo to discuss details. Email coordinator@PAZNIA.com. Again, coordinator@PAZNIA.com. See you in the second realm.
While infrastructure costs for the PAZNIA Radio Network aren't exorbitant now, there are some costs. It will also increasingly demand more time as we move towards longer transmissions and more transmissions. If you'd like to help cover current costs and even the expansion of our efforts, please visit PAZNIA.com/shop. There, you can make a one-time fiat, Bitcoin, or Monero donation. You can become a stakeholder, and you can even order some one-of-a-kind PAZNIA merch, ranging from shirts to hats to flags, all the way to beach towels. Again, that link at PAZNIA.com/shop. Cheers from the Free Republic.
You've just heard a transmission of the PAZNIA Radio Network, the entertainment and propaganda arm of the Free Republic of PAZNIA, a public service of the PAZNIA Free Press. Long live the Second Realm.